Okay, amazing. Hello, I'm
Hi.
Nabila from Lyca Radio. Um, we have some sort of history because I actually used to work for ZEE5 as well, so I'm very aware of your work and
Okay,
of you in general, which I think is amazing. So welcome. Thank you for talking to me today.
of course.
Um, Before we get into it, I do want to say, and I want to have a little bit of a fangirl moment, so please excuse me, but I want to say thank you for your work. I think Churails single-handedly changed the trajectory of my life. I
Oh,
looked at Pakistani media, I looked at everything in such a new light, and I don't think anyone has been able to capture the essence of women so well.
thank
And utterly obsessed. So I made everyone watch it. Anyone who I could find, I've made everyone watch it.
you.
And I think my other favorite thing was cake, and I mean everyone I could think of watched Cake, and it was just so beautiful, and it's so sometimes so hard to describe. But I think the way you just capture the essence of a character, of a family, of a situation, and project it so well, it speaks volumes. And I made my mum watch it, I made my dad watch it, and they
Wow,
cried,
thank you
and
so
it
much.
was just so incredible. Of
Thank you. I'm
course,
so
so
glad
that
it
was my
spoke to you.
no, honestly, thank you for your work, which obviously brings me to your new work, which is very exciting. So I've been having this conversation with my mum about how to pronounce it because I do this little segment on my radio show where I'm like, we're trying to learn Urdu, we're trying to better our Urdu and everything. How would you pronounce it? Because I think I've said it wrong.
Barzakh.
Barzakh. So definitely was saying it wrong. um, And I think it's brilliant. Why this title? So, obviously I looked into it and it's very interesting the Islamic kind of definition of it and the general sort of definition that we have of it in Urdu. But I would
Yeah.
love to understand like how you sort of came about and what does it tell us about what this show might be?
I think the reason I kind of came up with this, and there were a lot of conversations between me and my producing partner Shailja about whether audiences will find it alienating, etc. But the reason it worked was because it is a little. I mean, there's a basic definition as purgatory
Mm-hmm.
and limbo, but it has a lot more associated with it, like a very in the sense that it's also a veil and an obstruction and an
Yeah.
obstacle, and all of these characters are facing those obstacles in their life. It is also the space between those places, two places, and it's so all of these characters are sort of unable to move on to their with their future because they're so stuck in the past and they have not kind of resolved the issues in the past. So that was one meaning. And of course, there's this sort of a really heavy magical realist supernatural element to this show. And sort of,
Mm-hmm.
it also became the place where ghosts kind of came and souls sort of came before they moved on after their death. So I think all of those factors kind of fed in. I was like, this sort of one word encapsulates all of these meanings. So there can't really be another word to show. So luckily,
No, it's
Shilja.
incredible. Yeah, no, I think it's incredible. It's definitely a topic of conversation because we're trying to understand what that means. What does the show mean? The teasers are incredible because you're not giving anything away. So it's very, very supernatural and spooky, and I definitely got that vibe. And I think yeah, I think that's brilliant. That was a great explanation. And then talking about how you really like to have almost like an all-star cast in your shows, and how do you sort of maneuver making sure that everyone has justice to what their story may be because it's so relevant. And I'm going to head back to even some of your previous like which is obviously Churails and Cake, and Count Abdullah was hilarious, by the way. I did watch that here on ITVX, so well done. But everyone has some sort of backstory, and you want to do that justice, and you end up, portraying. I thought it was portrayed really well. I, really enjoyed even. I wouldn't say side characters, but how do you sort of think to do justice to that? Because this is an all-star sort of series and you're working with incredible actors. And what does
Yeah,
that mean? I feel like there's no one is necessarily a lead. Obviously, you have Fawad Khan and Sanam, obviously, but I feel like everyone kind of coming together. I'm like, no, there's
absolutely.
there's so much more.
Yeah, I think it really is an ensemble piece. And someone, if someone says Fawad and Sanam is leading it, I'm actually not. I'm like Salman Shahid is an equal, very fundamental role as the patriarch,
Mm-hmm,
and Fawad
mm-hmm.
Khan, who I've worked with in Churails as well, has as an equal role as to Fawad Khan. So I think it really is an ensemble, and I think it kind of works. Like, I don't choose the cast, and obviously then I write it, and then the actors kind of come along for it. And I sort of try and do my best in the writing phase to make sure that all the backstories of these characters are as fleshed out as possible. It is
Mhm.
as three-dimensional as I can make it. And I
Mhm.
think, that involves giving them flaws, and giving them like a very rich past, and sort of giving them unresolved issues, and giving them shades of gray. And I'm sort of keen on doing that with all the primary cast members. So
Yeah.
I think that is effectively what brings the actors. So the I never set out, with none of these things I've set out to have stars in a sort of what we call stars in a show. I've only set out to
Yeah.
have good actors. But luckily, they have faith in me. They have a belief in my writing, and that is kind of what attracts them. And I think that's the same case with, all the actors in Barzakh as well, who came really for the story, who believed that the story kind of needed to be told, and thought that it will serve a purpose. And I think that's what they came for.
Yeah, why the sort of supernatural element? I feel like in Pakistani media, not done that much. The few dramas that I have seen, and honestly, no judgment to them, it's always been
Yeah,
about like, Kala Jadoo, but in like a very
yeah,
OTT manner, in a manner that I've stopped watching them and I don't,
yeah.
it's not for me, it's not my kind of media. But I'm so excited to see how you sort of tackle that. But what kind of
Yeah.
brought it about? Like why?
Sure. So I think that there's no element of black magic in this. There's no element of any darkness. I think that the whole idea of the story came during the pandemic. We were all dealing with so much grief and so much loss and so much death. And that's when I started writing this. And it was an idea, it was really a very personal way for me to heal from what was happening. And I couldn't talk about death without talking about death. And I couldn't talk about death without trying to figure out what happens after death. I didn't want it to feel like closure. I did not want it to feel like everyone who we lost for good. And I wanted it to feel that there was sort of some recourse, some way of sort of reconnecting with them, of seeing them in some form or the other. And I think that kind of opened up the door for me to kind of explore this world where, if you believe, if your faith is strong enough, you are able to have signs, and you're able to connect with the people that you have lost. And I think sort of it explores the supernatural from that element. I also didn't want to do a dysfunctional family story again, because I'd kind
Yeah,
of done it on Cake. And I'm like, I
yeah,
often say this, that this is Cake on acid, or Cake on steroids, or something like that, because it
yeah.
really is dysfunctional family, but in this sort of a epic, extravagant world, which is sort of real but also unreal.
Hmm. Really interesting. Yeah. So I mean, how do you deal with that pressure? Because you do things and they just catapult and they're amazing and it's very international. And I had so much. I'm not even exaggerating, even working at ZEE5, for example, where a lot of my Indian colleagues were like, this was amazing, Churails was amazing. And I'm like, you need to watch Cake. And I obviously got to enjoy watching Count Abdullah and stuff. But this is pressure almost, or maybe there isn't, but is there that you think I'm doing something, I have responsibility, people look up to it, people maybe on that level of what I have achieved and given the audiences before, what if what if they don't like it, or what if they absolutely love it? It's very different to what you've done before, almost to an
Yeah,
extent. I feel like Count Abdullah was almost like this comedic sort of supernatural element, very young,
yeah,
very much British Pakistani that we could
yeah,
relate to. But
yeah,
this being on a streaming platform, also coming to YouTube, it's a very international sort of effect. So maybe it's
yes,
two questions in one. But do you ever feel that?
yeah.
Do you ever think that there's a lot of pressure on me to do this, or are you just kind of in your writer's sort of circle and you're like, no, I just want to do a really good job. I've got great actors. It's going to happen for me. What's that process for
It's
you?
kind of the latter, but yeah, it's kind of the latter, because I think there is pressure. There's pressure when I'm doing it. So I think I'm a sort of I hate the word perfectionist, but I try my best. I will give it my 100%, and I will drive myself to almost the death's doors to make sure that what I'm doing
Oh,
is
God.
as close to good as I can make it within the budget and
Yeah.
the timing constraints that I have. I think that is the only pressure that I have. I have stop taking pressure in terms of what audiences are going to say or think. I think I did that during Cake. It was my first time, and I was, it was early
Mhm.
days. And then with Churails, I did because it was the first time I was doing streaming. But I think really, I think Barzakh is the most personal story I've ever told, even though it's sort of epic and sort of out there and mad.
Wow.
Is in a way the most personal that I've ever been about all the questions that bother me and all the things that worry me and all the things that I think about. And I'm sort of laying that bare. But it's sort of almost like cathartic and liberating at the same time, where I'm like, okay, I have truly, truly made this show for myself. And I've made it with the idea that if I believe in it, there will be others out there. It might not be billions of people, but there will be a handful of people who are going to have the same questions and thoughts and feelings and want to talk about the same thoughts and feelings that I want to talk about, and they'll be able to connect with it. And for them, for me, it's always stronger to have that really, really hardcore, not fan base, but relatability with someone. Like, with Churails, the most beautiful moments that I remember post Churails trailer is like a woman, a girl messaging me saying on like DM saying that, look, I saw myself in Zubeda and kind of I told my parents I was not going to marry the guy that they were going to make me marry. I had another
Wow.
girl
Yeah.
told me that she said that it gave her the courage to come out to her parents. So I was like, those for me
Oh,
are the moments that I'm kind of looking for. Even if like a handful of people are able to see the truth in what I'm trying to say, then it's my job done.
that's incredible. That's incredible. And I completely relate with that. I think it's so beautiful that you're looking at it as your own think piece, your own sort of creative outlet. And if people engage and resonate, then they do. And I think what's really interesting would be like, even if people don't resonate, they'll watch it and be like, and maybe give them a sort of a new thought process, which I think a lot of your work tends to do as well.
Yeah.
Even like making someone like my dad, who I forced him to watch Juez, and he looked at it in a whole new light. It's just women, isn't it? And it's so
Yeah.
different. And exactly what you say, we're human. And I think what was really nice in Cake as well is that it's that human aspect, that no one is inherently good, no one is inherently bad. We're
Agreed.
human. And being able
Yeah.
to capture that is so wonderful.
And
But I'm
we are
going to go back to
flawed. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
that's an incredible thing to show. So go back to the show a little bit, and I know my listeners are going to want me to ask about what Khan, what was
Of
it
course they
like for
are.
you to it's so funny when I got the interview, I was like, absolutely, I'm obsessed with Asim Abbasi. I like following you on Instagram. I always write little comments when you release new things, so you're looking out for
Oh,
me now. But like major supporter from like day one. So and
thank you.
then they were like, it's Fawad Khan, they're gonna want to know, and I'm like, fine, I'll do it.
Of course.
I mean, I love
Yeah.
him. Please, I'd love to talk more about the characters. I know the trailer hasn't launched yet, so fingers crossed, like that's going to come out on the 1st of July. I'm very excited to
Yeah.
see it. But there's anything you can tell me about the characters, or and also what it was sort of like? I feel like you're bringing back some of the people you've previously worked with. Iman Suleiman, who I absolutely adore. I think she's wonderful. So it's really cool to
Yeah.
see her doing this.
Yeah.
Sanam, you've obviously worked with. Fawad, you've obviously worked with. You have some sort of, really good history. And then I feel like Kushal is maybe a newbie for you as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, please do tell me about what it was like working with them.
I mean, it was great. I think they were all sort of, I often say this, that they're sort of just really wanting to do good work. And I think that's the thing that, all of the stardom and noise and social media, like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes takes away from why actors do what they do. And it is because they love their craft and they really want to be able to play these characters and sort of encapsulate their vulnerabilities and sort of, do justice to those characters and bring a story to life. And I think all of these actors that I have had the pleasure of working with, and whether it's repeat or new actors, they are so humble and down to earth and so focused on just the performance aspect of it rather than the starry aspect of it. So I think it's always a pleasure. I mean, I do hear stories about starry tantrums, but I've never experienced it in any of my sets ever. So I've been very lucky and very blessed that way. And working with Fawad was great. Again, like we said, there's equal weightage for these characters. And for Fawad, who is by all definitions a superstar of the subcontinent, for him to be wanting to say, you know what, the story is good. I have faith in you as a director. I want to do this. And I don't care that everyone else has the same amount of role. I think I can contribute to this. And I think that is a wonderful quality for any big superstar to have. And same thing with Sanam, it was an immediate yes for her because she kind of has that faith. I mean, we have a very good relationship since Cake, and I would have loved to have it in Churails, but she was doing a film at that point in time, so there were scheduling conflicts. But it's someone that we have a sort of, you have a shorthand with. I
Yeah,
know she knows
absolutely.
how I direct, and she knows that I will catch on if I think that something is not feeling authentic or something. So, we have a beautiful relationship that way. And so I think it was incredible working with all of them. And I think they both Fawad and Sanam play characters that they have not played before. I mean, Sanam's is a very hard character because there is a sort of a otherworldly um element to her existence.
Oh,
She
I
is
see.
human, but she's also not 100% human. So there is some
Yeah.
element to it we kind of explore. So it was like even little contributions that actors make, like Sanam has these very specific contact lenses, which are very subtle on for the show, which sort of, enhanced her way in a way that we needed it to, for just to give this sort of a glassy presence. And that was her idea completely, because she was
Mm-hmm.
constantly thinking, she was like, what can I do that I've not done before? What can I do? And then
Mm-hmm.
even sort of there's a certain stoicism to her where she shows the emotion, but she also withholds it. She generally does that as well. But with Sherazad's character, it's even more. So I think that was just great. And then for Fawad, he plays the role of a single dad. So it was just incredible for me to see him in not just a role romancing a girl, but rather in trying
Yeah.
to rebuild
Yeah.
his relationship with like a sort of a 9-year-old, and sort of that dynamic, and trying to make sure that he doesn't make the mistakes that his father made in raising
Mm-hmm.
him, but
Mm-hmm.
inevitably, because that's how we humans are, making his own set of mistakes with his child.
Yeah.
And so it was really great to see him in that role that I think he's never done before.
That's incredible. I'm like, are you allowed to tell me more? Or is it like spoilers or not? But I honestly so excited to see it. That's incredible. And I really, really love to understand your sort of thought process of you obviously do a lot of work and it's not just Pakistani media, you obviously have done British media. How do you sort of the crossover? Has there ever been like a struggle for you? You know how they're always talking about the diaspora or culturally for us as well. There's always like that Pakistani side, but we're also very British and quintessentially British. What
Yeah.
sort of drew you to come back and do a little bit more based around that sort of work? As opposed to, I feel like you didn't take a break, but I feel like Cat Abdullah happened. I feel like there's something else you're directing,
I did the famous five. Yeah.
The Famous Five, yes. Um, the differences, are there any major differences in like the approach to work and the characters and the culture shift in general? Like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I love doing both. But I think there is a vast difference. For infrastructurally, Pakistan is still not as strong as I would have liked it to be, or where I think we can eventually take it. There's a
Yeah.
full sort of a well-oiled machinery when it comes to working in the UK. So
Hmm.
I finished a shoot in the UK, and everyone in the family is like, oh my God, it doesn't look like you finished a shoot. And like, if I finish a shoot in Pakistan, they're like, what do you need? Therapy, drugs? What, what do you need? How do we make you better?
Have you eaten?
No.
Have you slept? Yeah, yeah. I can
It's
imagine.
there's no, it's like the Wild West, right? Because it's like,
Yeah,
insane amount of hours. But the beauty of it is that everything shows on screen. There's such hardworking people in Pakistan, and just everyone wants what is best for the project, and every single penny shows on screen, and you can do things for, I mean, obviously it's ballooning now, but you can still do things for cheaply. Like, I could never make, like, if I told anyone in the UK what I made Churails for, they would laugh, because you can't make it, like, projects for that amount of money. So I think that
no,
that hunger, that drive that we have within the subcontinent of trying to
yeah,
achieve something, that I think is
yeah,
unparalleled in the West, because it is such a developed industry. But for me, it's beautiful because my family is there. I get to spend more time with them when I'm shooting in the UK, so that helps. It's also the projects that I've done in the. I'm exploring possibly doing a writing gig now, but before that, I've only done directing work. So Count Abdullah was written by
hmm,
Kam, so great writer, and same thing with Famous Five. I didn't write it. It was another female South Asian writer, Priya Dosanjh.
yeah, yeah,
So with that, I think directing actually is a little bit easier than writing when it comes to the diaspora, because I've lived in the UK more than I have lived in Pakistan, but I moved to the UK when I
hmm.
was 18. So it is
Right, okay.
yeah. So I didn't grow up So I still like, I find the British accent like different from my accent. I find the
Hmm.
way of thinking slightly different from my accent. My
Hmm.
wife is second generation, third generation South, like British, but like British Pakistani. But so I think even within the house, we have like, cultural
Yeah.
dissimilarities because I've just been living here. So I feel like I've never attempted writing something, and that would be a challenge. I think for me anyway, directing was a challenge as well because I had never done comedy, and again, I hadn't done
Yeah.
British Asian humor. I
Hmm.
knew everything that we were tackling thematically, but I was always like going to Kamil or the producers at Fudge Park and saying, I don't know if I'm going to do justice to the comedy. Like, what if I make
Yeah.
it too dark or not funny enough or something? But I think as a filmmaker, you're always a learner and you're trying
Hmm.
to do different things because you're trying to explore. I'm not interested in saying Asim Abbasi only does this kind of work. I want to be known for as much variety and as much differences. I
Yeah.
think as long as there's sort of emotional authenticity and emotional
Hmm.
honesty to it, like I'm open to all sorts of things.
I think that's amazing. Yeah, I completely get that. It's so difficult. Like I have always
Hey,
been with,
Nabila, I'm
British
so
Pakistani.
sorry I'm interrupting you, but time
Yay! We're out
constraints.
of time.
Sorry, I
See
was
what
having
that
fun.
does? Same, but I was gonna say it's really hard to capture that, and it's really funny because growing up here, I'm born brought up here. My dad actually shifted us to Pakistan for like a year or two because he was like, "Inko zuban nahi aati, inko Pakistani ke bare mein kuch
uh,
nahi pata," all of this, and that's where I pretty much started learning Urdu. And then it was the Pakistani media, it was the dramas that actually helped me kind of authenticize it a little bit,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's where I pick it up. And even today, I'll watch it and I'll pick up a word and I'll try it in a sentence and I'll try it
Nice.
on the radio show as
Great way
well.
to
And I'm like,
learn.
that's how we do it. It's a great way to learn. And that, I think we have global access now because of the beauty of even being able to stream or have YouTube for these shows, that you're not just like a Pakistani household name. I think it's wonderful that you're very international and global. And I'm so excited to watch the show. And it was just so wonderful speaking to you. And I really hope we get the chance to meet when you come to the UK. I think that'd be
Yes.
wonderful. And, we'll catch up about the show and everything. But yeah, thank you so much. I know we're running
Thank
out of
you.
time, but
Lovely
thanks,
speaking to
Sanam.
you.
So lovely speaking to you. Thank you for your time. Thanks, girls. Bye.